I started a new live stream with a new title. Yeah, we'll just do this until we get enough people.
Have you ever really stopped to think about what holds reality together? Like fundamentally, what makes things solid, coherent?
It's a deep question.
Right. Well, today we're going to dive into something called Fox coherence density, or FCD for short. And our goal here is really to unpack it, to see how FCD offers this new lens on the energetic cost of of maintaining structure, information, from tiny particles right up to, well, us.
It's fascinating stuff. At its core, FCD is about measuring how densely and how coherently an information state packs its local space-time value signature.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. Information state.
Think of it as the unique blueprint, the dynamic pattern of anything that exists, whether it's a subatomic particle or a complex thought.
And the local space-time value signature.
That's how that specific blueprint imprints itself onto reality, right here, right now, how it holds its form within space-time. So FCD basically quantifies the energy needed to keep reality organized at that point, to maintain stability.
Okay, stability. And the unit for this is joules per meter to the sixth power, JM6. That sounds intense.
It does, yeah. Joules, that's energy, that makes sense. The M6, meters to the sixth, that's the part that usually makes people pause.
Right. How do we even picture that? Volume is meters cubed. M3. Where does the extra M3 come from?
Well, think of it like this. One M3 is the volume, the space it occupies. The second M3 conceptually represents the quality or the integrity of the information within that volume.
Like how crisp its definition is.
Exactly. How coherently packed its information is, preventing it from just fuzzing out. It's the energy cost to define and sustain that stable state, its distinctness.
And FCD isn't linear, right? It's logarithmic.
Crucially, yes, logarithmic. We're talking values from maybe 1030 for like potential unrealized mass,
right.
Stuff that barely exists,
wow.
All the way up to 106, maybe higher for everyday macroscopic objects.
If you have any questions, I can convert back over to the AI and answer any questions you have.
The difference between just potential and something actually stable is astronomically expensive, energetically speaking.
Hugely expensive. The universe pays a massive premium for coherence and stability. It's not a cheap process.
Which leads us to how complexity actually builds up, right?
Yeah.
The FCD emergence equation.
Precisely. And this is key. When things combine to form something new and more complex, the FCD of the new entity isn't just the sum of the FCDs of its parts. That would be too simple.
Okay, so not just adding FCDs together, what happens then?
You actually multiply the FCDs of the individual components, and then you multiply that result by another factor, a coherence factor, which we call C.
Multiply and add another multiplier, the coherence factor, CF.
Exactly, and this CF is always greater than 1. It's a unitless number that represents the extra energy investment needed.
Extra energy for what?
To lock in the new, stable information state. This covers the energy for its emergent properties, things the parts didn't have alone, like, wetness emerging from H2O molecule.
Right, no single water molecule is wet.
Correct. It also covers the increased complexity, the internal entanglement between the parts, and something we term relational gravity.
Relational gravity, not like physical gravity.
No, think of it as the intrinsic energetic pull that binds these different informational pieces into one single cohesive system. It's the cost of creating that unified whole with new properties. Forming coherence always costs more energy.
Okay, let's make this concrete. Walk us through building, say, a human using FCD. How did that cost ladder up?
All right, so you start at the absolute base level, a fundamental unit. Its FCD is basically a function of its inherent energy, its spin, its volumetric information footprint. Let's call it K times those properties.
Okay, basic unit FCD. Then an atom.
Right. To form an atom, you take the FCDs of all its constituent fundamental units, multiply them together,
Multiply.
and then multiply that by an atomic coherence factor, CF atom. The CF pays for the new stability, the atomic bonds, the emergent properties of that specific atom.
Makes sense. And then for a molecule like water, H2O.
Same principle, just scaled up. You take the FCD of one hydrogen atom, multiply.
Have you ever really stopped to think about what holds reality together?
We're going to continue.
They must have been surprised when I got into that ring. I've seen a million parodies of
Welcome to a deep dive. We're looking at your sources on a really significant piece of legislation, H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
Yeah, it just squeaked through the House, didn't it? May 22nd.
Barely. 215 to 214. It's a budget reconciliation package, and it's already causing quite a stir.
Oh, absolutely. You've got figures like Elon Musk being incredibly critical. He called it, what, a disgusting abomination?
That's right, and urged people to kill the bill. He made some pretty strong claims, bankrupting America, for one.
Right. So today we're going to use these sources, independent analyses, reporting, the lot, to really unpack what's inside H.R. 1.
Exactly. We want to see how the different takes, including Musk's, stack up against the data, and ultimately what it means for you.
Okay, let's maybe start with the big picture financials. The deficit, the debt. Proponents said this bill would, quote, jumpstart the economy.
And achieve the largest deficit reduction in nearly 30 years. Big promises.
Very big. But then you look at the independent analyses, the CBO, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Penn Wharton Tax Foundation.
The usual nonpartisan groups, what did they find?
Well, pretty consistently, they project increases in the national debt over the next decade, not decrease.
Increases. How much are we talking?
It varies a bit, but the range is roughly $1.7 trillion on the low end, maybe over $5 trillion if some things become permanent, according to CRFB.
Wow.
Yeah, and the CBO specifically estimated a $1 increase in the primary deficit that's before interest.
So $3 trillion once you factor.
That's the CBO number, yes. So these independent sources seem to align more with the concerns about increasing debt, like Musk voiced.
And didn't Moody's also weigh in? The credit agency?
They did. They actually downgraded the U.S. debt rating and cited, among other things, fiscally irresponsible policy tied to this bill.
Okay, so the fiscal picture seems quite different from the initial claims, but what about Musk's claim of it being a mountain of disgusting pork? Did the sources find unrelated stuff tucked in?
They certainly flagged some provisions that seem a bit out of place for a budget bill.
Like what? Reconciliation's supposed to be about budget matters, right?
Generally, yes. But sources pointed to things like a 10-year ban on states regulating AI.
A decade-long AI rule in this bill.
Yep. And restrictions on federal courts enforcing contempt of security bonds.
Yeah.
All different SNFP work requirements based on marital status.
So things that aren't directly about taxes or spending.
Exactly, which supports that idea of using the reconciliation process to push through policy riders that might not pass otherwise. The sources definitely characterize some of this as, well, pork.
Okay, let's shift to energy. Musk claimed a bias targeting green energy, helping oil and gas. Do the sources bear that out?
They do, actually, pretty clearly. The bill specifically accelerates the repeal or phase out of major clean energy tax credits from the IRA.
Which ones?
Things like the credits for clean electricity production, clean energy investment, clean hydrogen, even manufacturing credits for solar, wind, EVs. Section 45Y, 48E, 45V, 45X, those key ones.
So rolling back recent clean energy support.
Right, and rescinding unspent IRA funds, repealing the methane tax.
And on the other side, for fossil fuels.
The bill mandates more oil and gas leasing on federal lands and waters the Gulf and WR onshore. And it puts money towards refilling the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
So that does look like a deliberate policy shift, supporting fossil fuels while actively cutting clean energy incentives.
It certainly reads that way in the sources, yes.
Yeah.
Aligning with that criticism of bias.
Okay, one last claim. The process. Musk and others said it was rushed, nobody could read it. What did the sources say about how it passed the House?
Well, they describe a very fast process. The House used what's called a closed rule.
Meaning limited debate, limited amendments.
Exactly. And the timeline was incredibly tight. It went from the Rules Committee sending it out to the full House vote in roughly 24 hours.
For a bill over 1,000 pages long.
Right. And you had lawmakers like Representative Green quoted in one source saying it was really hard to even read it properly given the speed and last minute changes.
So the procedural reporting seems to back up those concerns about a lack of transparency and, well, a rushed process.
Yeah, it does raise questions.
So pulling all this together from the sources, what does HR 1 really mean for you, the listener?
Well, first off, those debt projections matter. Higher national debt eventually impacts the whole economy, interest rates, future spending.
And the specific policies have real-world effects, right? Energy costs, maybe changes to safety nets like SNT, how AI develops, even court functions.
But absolutely, these aren't just abstract numbers. They can touch daily life.
And maybe just as important is how it happened. The process itself tells us something about, how laws get made these days.
Definitely. The speed, the limited debate on such a massive bill, it raises questions about representation and accountability.
So looking back at the sources, it seems that independent analyses and the reporting on the bill's content and process, they largely align with many of the specific criticisms Musk leveled.
Yes. Regarding the deficit impact, the presence of unrelated riders or pork, the distinct energy policy shift, and the concerns about the rushed legislative process. The sources provide evidence consistent with those points.
And now it hits to the Senate. A different ballgame, right?
Totally different. They have the Byrd rule.
Yeah.
Specific provisions in reconciliation bills that are considered extraneous matter, things not primarily about the budget.
So we should probably expect significant changes there.
Almost certainly. It'll be interesting to watch.
Indeed. So maybe the final thought for you to consider is, what does this whole episode with HR 1, its contents, the criticisms, the process reveal about the priorities and maybe the power dynamics shaping major legislation in Washington right now to think about as this bill continues its journey?
They must have been surprised when I got into that ring. I've seen a million parodies of me, and I don't get a thing. I am not a king, I am not a saint. I have problems in my head, my friends told me I've changed. And I used to be gold like the first man made. Now I'm buried in the earth.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping right into U.S. government sources on UAP, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena.
That's right. And specifically, we're looking at whistleblower disclosures made to Congress.
Disclosures hinting at maybe technologies of unknown origin, perhaps even non-human intelligence.
And the real crux of it is this allegation that the executive branch might be holding back information.
Holding it back from Congress, and, well, therefore, from you, the public.
And the data isn't public record stuff. It's described as coming from inside the executive branch, specifically accessed by a DoD employee.
Okay, so the report itself lays out, 7 kinds of evidence?
Yeah, 7 categories. Things like unacknowledged special access programs, imagery intelligence, human intelligence, signals intelligence, bureaucratic records, historical records, that sort of thing.
Quite a range.
Oh.
For this dive, though, we're focusing on one specific program, right? Immaculate Constellation.
That and some really compelling examples from U.S. government imagery, IMINT, and also
Love it.
Defense Human Intelligence, so first-hand accounts.
Immaculate Constellation. What exactly is that supposed to be?
Well, according to this source material, it's an unacknowledged special access program, a USAP.
Okay.
And interestingly, it was apparently set up after the ATIP and AIO SAP stuff became public knowledge back in 2017.
Ah, so post-publicity, what's its mission?
Primarily gathering imagery intelligence, IMNT, specifically on UAP, and also these things called reproduction vehicles, RVs or RVs.
Like production vehicles, what does that imply?
It implies a belief, at least within these circles, that some phenomena might be, platforms developed by studying or acquiring technologies of unknown origin.
So we might be trying to replicate this tech. That's quite something.
It's a major implication. So Immaculate Constellation acts like a hub for intel on these anomalous aerospace threats.
Using military intelligence assets.
Exactly. Tasked and untasked resources, low Earth orbit, atmosphere, aviation altitudes, even maritime. It suggests the USG knows about UAP signatures and maybe foreign efforts too.
And they keep this imagery locked down.
Apparently, yes. Sophisticated security to stop it circulating widely.
Okay, let's get into the visuals then. The IMNE examples. You mentioned a CNTCOM case. Metallic orbs.
Yeah, this one sounds pretty striking. Daytime footage, standard and infrared, showing around a dozen metallic orbs, maybe 3 to 6 meters each, flying in a tight cuboid formation, skimming the ocean surface really fast, and then just dispersing.
Cuboid. Wow. And they showed up on infrared.
White hot on FLIR, yeah.
Yeah.
With heat shimmer contrails, the formation itself is really unusual, suggests coordination.
Definitely not your average weather balloon.
What?
What else?
Another CNT-COM-1, small medium oval UAP, high speed, low altitude over a sensitive coastal site, makes a sharp turn over the ocean.
Okay. And INDOPACOM. There was something about a triangle.
Right. Infrared footage of intelligence vessels at night. Suddenly, a large equilateral triangle UAP appears overhead. Bright corner lights, rotating beams.
And the analysis suggested.
That it was a reproduction vehicle, an RV, and maybe even that the vessels knew it was coming. It's a big leap.
Foreknowledge. Yeah, that changes things. Any others that stand out visually?
Let's see. A large saucer, maybe 200, 400 meters circumference, seen by space-based infrared coming out of clouds. Black hot. It seemed to react evasively, like it knew it was being watched from space.
Aware of observation.
Then there's a boomerang shape, seen by a pilot and sensors, that apparently emitted a sphere of light and vanished inside it.
Vanished inside the light.
That's the description. And a jellyfish UAP crossing the U.S.-Mexico border against the wind, similar to things seen near DoD sites in Iraq and Afghanistan.
It's a pattern almost. What about the human intelligence side, the human T reports?
Reviewed over 400 reports spanning from 91 to 2022, common shapes. Spheres, orbs, discs, saucers, ovals, tic-tacs, triangles, and boomerangs were rarer, but definitely there.
And common behaviors.
Across the board, you see reports of incredible speed, maneuverability that just shouldn't be possible, no obvious propulsion, electromagnetic effects on equipment.
You mentioned physiological effects earlier.
Yeah, that's in there too. Feelings of unease, sometimes described as almost trance-like. Device malfunctions near the UAP. Headaches. Eye strain reported by ground personnel in one case.
Can you give a specific example?
Sure. One details a medium-large orange-red sphere over a Navy carrier flight deck. It came down pretty close, maybe 100, 200 yards. Emitted light, but the light didn't actually illuminate anything.
Strange.
Yeah, and the surface was described as roiling. Then it shot straight up. Personnel nearby felt that deep unease, that trance-like feeling.
And the F-22 incident.
Right. Multiple metallic orbs intercepting an F-22 on patrol. They evaded radar lock, kind of boxed the fighter in. One orb apparently stayed in a fixed position near the cockpit during evasive maneuvers.
Forced the fighter out.
That's the report. Forced the F-22 to break off and leave the area.
Okay, so just to recap, we've got this alleged secret program, Immaculate Constellation, focusing on UAP, and maybe even our own attempts to replicate them. And then we have these government imagery and human intelligence reports painting a picture of, well, phenomena with the capabilities way beyond what we understand.
That's the core of it. Advanced capabilities, unexplainable characteristics, observed by military assets and personnel.
Which brings us back to that central concern, doesn't it? If this is real, why the alleged secrecy from Congress and the public?
That's the question hanging over all of this.
So considering everything we've just touched on, the detailed sightings, the program, the secrecy, what's the big question that leaves you thinking?
For me, it really forces you to confront the fundamentals. What are these things? Where do they come from? What's their intent? If this information is accurate, it challenges our basic understanding of, well, reality and certainly national security. What does it all imply? It leaves you with a lot to chew on.
I am not a king, I am not a saint. I have problems in my head, my friends told me I've changed. And I used to be gold like the first man made. Now I'm buried in the earth till the robin come and wake me up.
Welcome back, deep divers. So, you've sent in some really fascinating sources this time. They point towards this powerful idea, how information isn't just, describing reality. It actually seems to cause it, to shape it. So today we're diving deep into this, specifically the information state, or just I, from the Fox Quantum Geometry of Information model.
Right. And our mission really is to unpack how you get from this huge pool of, well, potentials to something definite, something real.
Okay.
And the key thing is, it's not random. There's a blueprint guiding it. And what's kind of wild is how universal this seems to be. You see it everywhere at totally different scales.
Yeah, that's what grabbed me. So to really get our heads around this blueprint idea, let's look at some maybe unexpected examples, like from business or just everyday life, even biology itself.
Sounds good.
We'll see how this information state is kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes. Okay, let's unpack this. So Our sources kick off with a really clear analogy. A business plan. Thinking of that as an information state. You've got all this potential, right? Talent, money, materials, market needs, just sitting there.
Exactly, just
Yeah.
unrealized mass, basically. And that detailed business plan, that's the information state. It's the blueprint.
Right.
And when the Fox model talks about energy, it's not just fuel. It's the active power to transform things. So the investment, the work people put in, that's the energy making the business happen.
Okay.
Turning potential into reality.
Yeah.
And its unique culture or its brand. That's like its spin. You know, like a particle's spin dictates its behavior. Values written in the plan, they aren't just words on paper. It's identity.
Okay, that makes sense. But what if something changes, like the market shifts, and it wasn't explicitly in the plan? Is the information state, or can it adapt?
Yeah, that's crucial. The model suggests a good information state, even a business plan, isn't totally static. It should have parameters for what it calls internal entanglement.
Internal entanglement.
Right, think of it as the internal structure, the supply chains,
Yeah.
how things are connected, and crucially, how they can change. So the better those adaptive pathways are defined in the blueprint, the more resilient the company will be when it actually forms. Without that specific plan, though, all those resources just stay potential soup.
You know, it sort of makes me think about baking. Seriously, like when you try baking something without a recipe, total chaos, usually.
Yeah, exactly.
And our sources actually use a recipe as another example. Perfect information state. You've got flour, sugar, eggs, potentials in your pantry.
And the recipe, that specific recipe for, say, a chocolate cake, that's the blueprint. It's a guide. This is where a term like LP signature for the model comes in.
Signature, okay.
Yeah, think of it like the unique informational fingerprint. It defines what something is, fundamentally, its function. For the cake, it's the specific chemistry, the structure that makes it that chocolate cake, not, bread or scrambled eggs.
Right.
The recipe guides those interactions to produce that exact signature.
So you follow the recipe, the potentials collapse, like the model says, and boom, chocolate cake. It's definite.
Precisely.
And it's really amazing how this scales up, even to something as complex as, well, life itself. The sources talk about the unrealized mass here being all the atoms and molecules just floating around, amino acids, proteins, water, potentials.
And the DNA sequence in a cell. That's the ultimate information state, the master blueprint for an organism.
Wow.
Its position is defined by how all those molecules are arranged precisely, forming organs, tissues. And its inherited magnetism, gravity. That's about its ability to reproduce, to influence its environment. It's the informational pull it has.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling, this tiny little blueprint DNA dictating something as complex as, well, us, through transcription, translation, all guided by that DNA information state. That raw potential of molecules collapses into a living thing, a functioning organism.
And you see when things go wrong, right? Mutations, errors in the DNA blueprint lead to different, sometimes flawed outcomes. It just shows how critical that information state
Which
is.
absolutely proves the point.
So what's really profound here, I think, is that this whole principle, information state guiding the collapse of potential. It's not just some weird quantum thing happening at tiny scales.
Right.
It seems to be a fundamental pattern. You see it everywhere, across all scales. It really hammers home that information isn't just describing things. It's fundamentally causing them, shaping reality.
So what does this all mean for you listening? I mean, understanding this concept, it really changes how you look at things, doesn't it? Building a business, baking a cake, even how life forms. They seem totally different, but this underlying principle connects them.
Yeah.
It feels like, I don't know, a shortcut. A shortcut to being really well informed about how things actually work.
And, it leaves you with a pretty big question. If information really is causative like this, what information states, what blueprints are shaping the big challenges we face today? Or maybe even, the small choices you make every day. What are the blueprints running your reality?
That's the way it goes. Back and forth again.
Oh yeah, you're all good. Yeah, whenever he wants to over, just let me
Welcome
know.
to the deep
I'll be
dive.
up for, like,
Today we're tackling a listener request that's aiming for the stars, literally. The Golden Dome Missile
I got you.
Defense System. This is a proposal with
Yeah,
an
he's cool
incredibly ambitious
anytime.
goal, totally
I'm usually
reshaping how the
only
U.S.
for-
defends its homeland against all sorts of modern missile threats.
Right. Initially, it was actually presented as
watch it.
Iron Dome for America, but just a month later, that got rebranded to Golden
Yeah,
Dome.
you're cool. Tell
And
him
the
he's
person
more than
behind it,
welcome.
President
I mean,
Trump,
if
he
he's
wasn't
wanting to
exactly
try to
shy
work out
about the
something-
goals
I
or
mean,
the
I mean, not
timeline, was
physically,
he?
but
Not
I
at all.
can-
He laid out a remarkably ambitious target. He wanted it fully operational within 3 years.
3 years.
3 years. And with a success rate close to 100%, that kind of timeline, well, it immediately raises flags for defense experts, as we'll definitely get into.
Right. And this Golden Dome, it's not like it's supposed to be one single amazing gadget, is it? Sounds more complex.
But definitely, it's envisioned as a system of systems.
Yeah.
So think of it like taking our current defenses, ground-based interceptors, radar,
Stuff we already have.
exactly, and then layering in completely new technologies, especially stuff based in space, all working together, ideally under one unified framework.
So that branding change, Iron Dome to Golden Dome, feels like there's some strategic messaging there. What's the thinking?
Oh, absolutely. Iron Dome for America was clearly trying to link it to Israel's Iron Dome, which people see as successful, almost impenetrable.
Right. that
We're on the
perception
Golden
is strong.
Dome.
Switching to Golden Dome keeps that idea of invulnerability, but makes it sound bigger, grander. But it's crucial to understand right away defending the
Y'all be
entire
hearing
U.S.
about
homeland
this.
from sophisticated missiles is a completely different
Whoever's
ballgame
in here
than
smart.
Israel's Iron Dome dealing with
Pay
shorter
attention
range
to
rockets.
this.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
a
going to
huge
be
difference
the
in
talk
scale
for
and
the next
threat.
couple
It
months.
really is. It's like comparing, I don't know, swatting a fly to stopping a freight train. Vastly different challenges.
That's a really important.
The Golden Dome, I made this episode, 3 months ago? The Golden Dome. Nobody's in here right now, it's just me. And you'll be able to see this, and it's recorded. The Golden Dome will be the talk of the town, the nation, for the next freaking 6 years. Watch. What you hear from this will tell you what we have to expect. I've already analyzed the Golden Dome and what technology it takes and so on and so forth. Just watch. And if you can come back in here a year from now, and I wish you do, and you tell me I was wrong, that would be awesome. But
important
That's what
distinction. So we
happened.
have this super ambitious 3-year goal, this vision of near. Mentioned experts aren't really buying that timeline. What are they saying?
Yeah, the gap is pretty stark. For instance, retired Air Force General Glenn Van Herk, he estimated that just the space-based parts, the sensors and intercept.
we're gonna beat them in their like time frame. Like the Golden Dome will be up before Trump leaves office. Trust me, they're planning on it.
Which are key,
But cool.
could realistically take 5 to 10 years, just that part.
No,
And the general feeling
Not with
among defense
AI.
leaders is that building something this comprehensive, it's just not an overnight thing.
So right away, there's this big tension: political goals versus, well, the physics and engineering reality.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's dig into the tech then. Space-based interceptors seem like a really central piece. What's the big idea behind putting weapons in space?
Yeah, weapons in space is definitely a core element, and the big priority is what's called boost phase intercept.
Boost phase.
That's the very first stage, right after a missile launches. It's moving relatively slowly, burning bright.
so what that means is they will have to know where these objects are coming from to predict where they'll be if they leave Earth's surface. Because I think it's like 30, 40 feet, something like that, where like the radar can actively predict that something has left Earth. Like it always predicts like planes leaving, like, but it can see a plane because it's a gradual climb versus like something like a rocket, which is like a full-on, hurdle.
It's the most vulnerable point.
Ah, okay.
Chief of Space Operations General Saltzman put it very directly. He said, it's not just that we want space-based interceptors, we want them in the boost phase. Hitting it then gives you the best shot.
Makes sense. Get it early. So who's working on this?
Well, the Missile Defense Agency, MDA, they're working closely with the Space Force.
Yeah.
And they're bringing in traditional defense contractors, but also some non-traditional companies too, really trying to push the envelope.
Haven't we tried space-based interceptors something.
You do. Yeah, there have been past efforts, and they've consistently hit major roadblocks and, frankly, technical feasibility. Some old estimates figured you'd need thousands of these things just for a limited threat.
Thousands. Wow.
And here's the kicker, a really crucial point from the assessment. The actual technology needed for operational space-based interceptors does not currently exist.
Okay, wait. So it's central to the vision, but we can't actually do it yet.
In an operational, ready-to-go form, no. That's a fundamental gap right now.
And if we could do it, where would these intercepts actually happen? You mentioned boost phase.
Right. And this is another huge wrinkle. The assessment itself notes that any such intercept is likely to occur well within an adversary's territory.
Where are their country?
Exactly. Think about the implications. Shooting down a missile over, say, Russia or China, even if it's their missile aimed at us,
Could be seen as an act of war?
or at least a major violation of sovereignty. So,
No
technically
win.
desirable, geopolitically and legally, extremely complicated.
Definitely adds another layer. Okay, so besides trying to shoot missiles down from space, what other advanced tracking tech is part of this Golden Dome plan?
You need sophisticated tracking, absolutely. A key piece is HBTSS,
Predictive
hypersonic
tracking.
ballistic tracking space sensors.
Okay.
It's a joint MDA Space Force thing. First two satellites went up in February 2024. Yeah, like the name says, it's specifically for detecting and tracking those really fast, maneuverable hypersonic threats.
Which are a growing concern.
Big time. L3Harris, one of the developers, says the sensor's ready for full production. And they've already used it successfully in tests, tracked hypersonic flights, gathered tons of data.
And they're
Even did a demo
predicting
in
other
March,
stuff as
simulating
well.
tracking and sending data for an intercept.
So that's a step forward for hypersonics. What else is in the tracking toolkit?
There's also the DSS, or Discriminating Space Sensor. MDA is prototyping
Trash.
this. The goal here is to get much better at telling the real missile warheads, apart from decoys, debris, while they're in mid-course flight.
Makes the intercepts count.
Exactly. Make them more effective.
Yeah.
Prototype launch for DSS is targeted for 2029. Then you've got PWSA, the Proliferated Warfighter Space Architecture. That's the Space Development Agency's project.
Okay.
Think a large constellation of satellites in low Earth orbit, LEO, with wide view sensors for global warning and tracking. It's described as a resilient layered network. Lots of eyes in the sky.
So HBTSS, DSS, PWSA, lots of acronyms, lots of sensors. Are ground systems getting upgrades too?
Absolutely. The DDN system, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, its AIM TPY2 radar, is getting a major boost. Raytheon delivered a version with a gallium nitride array.
Which means
Basically, much more sensitive, longer range, better at handling hypersonics. It's barely so sensitive it can spot tiny objects right after a missile's booster separates.
leaving more warning time.
More time. And it helps tell the real threats from leftover bits and pieces. Better discrimination.
Got it. And you mentioned AI earlier. How does that fit into processing all this tracking data?
AI is really seen as the key to making sense of it all through something called sensor fusion.
Sensor fusion.
Yeah, taking data from all different kinds of sensors, infrared, radar, UV, optical, and having AI algorithms weave it together into a much clearer real-time picture of what's actually happening out there.
So it sees the whole picture, not just pieces.
Exactly. It's crucial for tracking in cluttered environments, or maybe if GPS is jammed. It should significantly improve targeting accuracy. Think of it like AI looking at a dozen puzzle pieces simultaneously and instantly seeing the image.
Okay, so we're gathering all this data using AI to make sense of it. How does that translate into actually stopping a missile? That seems to be where the AI-driven command and control network comes in.
Precisely. Golden Dome envisions AI as the central nervous system managing this incredibly complex operation. The Army, for example, they're looking at AI to increase system autonomy, meaning fewer people needed.
Potentially, yeah. Reducing manpower is often a goal. The idea is AI handles the heavy lifting data analysis, prioritizing threats, enabling much faster decisions for intercepts, especially against those super fast hypersonics. They're using their Guam defense system as a test bed for this stuff.
And the Air Force, too.
Air Force is also experimenting with AI for battle management, yes.
Now, when you say faster decisions,
Yeah.
are we talking about AI deciding to launch interceptors all on its own? That sounds concerning to some.
It's a valid concern, and the assessment does touch on it. The plan includes defined trigger points, specific moments where a human operator is supposed to step in and make the final call, the go-no-go, for, higher level actions.
This human in the loop, at least for the big decisions.
That's the stated plan. However, the ultimate vision, the long-term goal, does seem to include the potential for fully AI powered closed loop decision chains. Meaning the whole sequence: identify threat, target it, engage. It could happen in milliseconds, potentially without direct human intervention in that loop.
And that's where the incredible speed and efficiency potential clashes with really significant ethical questions. Autonomous lethal force, accountability, unintended escalation.
Big questions.
Huge questions. And the ethical frameworks, the operational rules for how humans and AI work together like that, they're still very much being figured out. They're nascent.
And how does this new AI brain connect with the missile defense systems we already have deployed? You said it's a system of systems.
Right. The core idea is integration and augmentation. Bring GMD, FADE, Patriot, the radar satellites all under this Golden Dome umbrella and make them work better together.
Like the THAAD radar example.
Exactly. That upgraded THAAD radar being designed to guide interceptors from THAAD, Standard Missile, and Patriot batteries that shows the intent for cross-system cooperation.
But just because the tech can connect doesn't mean it will work together smoothly under pressure, does it?
You've absolutely hit on a critical point. The fact that it keeps being called a system of systems underlines the immense complexity. Getting these separate, incredibly complex systems, often built by different companies for different services,
Different priorities.
to truly integrate into one seamless, reliable, effective defense. That might be the biggest hurdle of all. It's not just technical, making the software talk. It's organizational, bureaucratic, cultural.
Breaking down silos.
Exactly. The assessment specifically mentions needing unified command and control and overcoming organizational boundaries and cultural resistance. So even if every piece of tech works perfectly on its own, making the whole orchestra play in tune, that could be the real challenge.
Like conducting a symphony where everyone's brilliant but they've never rehearsed together.
That's a good analogy.
And to try and make integration easier and maybe keep costs down, I see this mention of open architecture principles. What does that mean here?
So the plan is to use an open architecture. Think of it like using standard USB ports instead of everyone having their own proprietary connection. It means designing the system in modules using publicly known standards. The goal is to make it easier to plug in new tech later, encourage competition between companies, and avoid getting locked into one vendor. Open source software is already pretty common in national security.
Makes sense. Faster upgrades, more options.
And there's talk of using open source AI models too, which could help the DoD find more suppliers and deploy AI securely.
Are there any downsides to being that open with defense technology, though?
There is potential vulnerability, yeah. While open source speeds things up, publicly sharing the underlying code or AI model weights could, theoretically, aid adversaries in developing their own capabilities.
So it's a trade-off, innovation versus security.
It's definitely a balancing act they'll need to manage carefully.
Okay, we've covered the vision, the tech, but how feasible is all this, really? What are the big technical mountains they need to climb?
Feasibility is absolutely the trillion-dollar question, maybe literally. And there are huge challenges. First, just the sheer complexity of building this massively enlarged, layered system of systems for the whole U.S. homeland.
Ground, air, sea, space, all connected.
All needing to work under unified command. Ideally intercepting threats in any phase boost mid-course terminal. And as General Folsman said about boost phase intercept from space, that's a no joke of a physics problem. Incredible precision needed over vast distances at high speeds.
And that Manhattan Project comparison that came up, what was the point there?
Right, Vice Chief of Space Operations General Getling made that comparison. His point wasn't just the scale, but the management structure. The Manhattan Project had incredibly centralized authority, streamlined decisions.
Cut through the bureaucracy.
Exactly. He contrasted that with the current missile defense setup, which he called multi-entity committee-based with differing priorities. His argument is, without that kind of focused authority, managing something like Golden Dome effectively is going to be extremely difficult. The challenge isn't just inventing the tech, it's integrating and managing it across the board.
So the organization itself could be a bottleneck. What about the tech readiness? President Trump sounded pretty confident about having the phenomenal technology now.
He did contrast it with the SDI era, suggesting the tech is ready now, but expert consensus is more cautious. As we said, operational space-based interceptors, they do not currently exist.
Still a ways off.
Seems so. Rear Admiral Montgomery estimated maybe 7 to 10 years for a comprehensive system, and even that might have limitations. A 2024 report suggested directed energy weapons for ICBMs, probably not before 2035. So progress, yes, but still significant technological gaps, especially for that space-based boost phase piece.
And it needs constant updating anyway.
Absolutely. Constant upgrades and developmental evolution will be essential just to keep pace.
Which brings us back to that timeline. President Trump's less than 3 years sounds even more like a stretch now.
Exceptionally ambitious, feels like the polite term. Remember General Van Herk's 5 to 10 years just for the space layer? Also suggests Homeland Defense is more challenging and needs more funding than current efforts. And Rear Admiral
Sorry,
Murray
guys, I got
explicitly
paused.
warned that rushing it could lead to a
All right, we are back.
faulty end product.
And a dangerous false sense of security.
Exactly. An unreliable shield could be worse than no shield if it leads to miscalculations or causes us to neglect other proven deterrents.
So even if we build something fast, it might not work reliably. What about countermeasures? Can adversaries just overwhelm it or trick it?
That's a huge concern. Even current systems like SBRs can struggle to tell real targets from decoys. The DSS sensor aims to improve that, but it's an ongoing battle. Experts warn adversaries could use clustering launches, firing many missiles at once, or directly attack the satellite's Golden Dome relies on.
The same problems SDI faced.
Pretty much, yeah. Overwhelming the defenses, protecting the space assets, reliably discriminating decoys, these are persistent challenges. Plus, hypersonics add new wrinkles with speed, maneuverability, lower flight paths.
And adversaries are developing space weapons too.
Yes, the assessment mentions adversaries developing offensive counter-space capabilities, things to disable our satellites. Russia is reportedly studying space-based nuclear weapons concepts. This directly threatens the survivability of space-based weapons, a foundation of Golden Dome, and fuels a continuous arms race dynamic.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly expensive. What are the cost estimates floating around for Golden Dome?
The costs, they are, well, they're all over the place. President Trump initially put the total figure at $175 billion, with $25 billion up front. But the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, estimates the space-based part alone could hit $542 billion over 20 years.
$500 billion, just for the space part.
Yeah, and their broader range goes
It's
from
the
$264 billion up to $831 billion.
The difference is that Trump is like, hey, this is what we need to start it. He's not talking about what the upkeep is. See, the upkeep shows what the actual number will be. But just to get it started, he's mostly like right about 25 million. Easily.
Depending on how many interceptors. General Saltzman even suggested the CBO's high number might be too low.
Wow. and
Because they've
senators are
already
talking
built the infrastructure.
trillions.
Some unofficial estimates thrown around by senators have reached trillions, or even $6.2 trillion. So,
Well, technically not the infrastructure for having space-based weapons in the way that we're kind of thinking, advanced way. But they built the infrastructure to make it happen, is kind of what I'm saying. So, like, you know, keeping up with it will be the most of the cost versus making it happen.
the initial pitch of $175 billion versus independent estimates that are vastly higher, potentially into the trillions for the whole thing over its lifetime.
That's an
1.2 trillion.
astronomical difference.
It is. And remember, we've already spent over $415 billion on missile defense with arguably limited results. We currently spend about $30 billion a year. This huge gap in estimates isn't unheard of for mega projects, sometimes called cost delirium.
Like with SDI.
Exactly. Low initial estimates can be a political tactic, but the risk is it becomes an immense drain on defense resources, pulling funds from other vital areas. Big questions about opportunity costs and fiscal sustainability.
And is the funding actually there yet? Has Congress approved this?
Not really secured, no. President Trump requested that initial $25 billion via specific act. The House Armed Services Committee did put that amount into their version of the FY25 defense bill.
But that's just one step.
Right. It still needs Senate approval, full Congress approval. So
Yeah.
despite public confidence from the administration, there's no secured funding yet, and it's still officially in early development.
Who stands to benefit financially if this goes forward? Which companies?
Oh, a lot of contractors are lining up. The Pentagon got over 360 responses.
Yeah.
You got the big traditional players, Lockheed, Booz Allen, RTX. Boeing, but also newer tech firms like Palantir and Anduril.
And SpaceX.
SpaceX is involved, reportedly partnering with others, and they've proposed a pretty novel idea, a subscription service model.
Subscription service for missile defense.
Yeah. President Trump has highlighted potential job creation, and clearly it would be a massive payday for the companies involved. But that subscription model from SpaceX raises really interesting questions about ownership, control, national security implications. What happens in a crisis? Who controls the data? It's a potentially big shift in defense procurement.
Definitely something different. Okay, so massive costs, technical uncertainties. What are the wider political and strategic ripples of pursuing Golden Dome?
Well, the executive order itself signaled a clear shift in U.S. strategy, trying to move beyond the defense framework built for a, quote, far more benign strategic threat environment.
Recognizing the world has changed.
Right. If successful, it could potentially redefine nuclear deterrence, space strategy, arms control, the whole landscape. But it immediately triggers major concerns about escalating tensions, a new arms race in space.
China's reaction, for instance.
China has been very strong in its condemnation, calling it deeply destabilizing, accusing the U.S. of trying to weaponize space with clear offensive implications, undermining stability and arms control. It's that classic security dilemma playing out.
What we see as defense, they see as offense.
Exactly, and feel they have to respond, which just spirals.
How does this pursuit of a shield affect deterrence and arms control?
There's a real worry it could weaken existing arms control and maybe even encourage proliferation. The logic is, if the U.S. builds a shield adversaries think might work, they might feel they need more offensive weapons to guarantee their deterrence still holds.
To overwhelm the shield.
Right. Experts like James N. Miller argue we're not going to escape mutual assured destruction vis-a-vis Russia or China. That mutual vulnerability is still the reality. And historically, SDI stalled arms talks. Critics fear Golden Dome could do the same, making denuclearization harder. The quest for absolute security, for one, often makes everyone less secure.
What about other countries? Russia? Allies?
Russia's reaction was more nuanced than China's. They called it a sovereign matter for the U.S., but also warned it could spur their development of space weapons. Kind of a pragmatic warning.
Interesting contrast with China.
Yeah. Canada, meanwhile, expressed willingness to participate, maybe with sensor tech, data sharing, and the original directive did emphasize allied collaboration. The different reactions really show the complex geopolitics around space weaponization.
And finally, what about transparency and oversight for such a massive, controversial program?
There's been some red flags raised. A Reuters report mentioned deeply troubling aspects of early contract talks, suggesting they deviated from normal processes, raising transparency concerns.
Got a good look.
Plus, the fact the Pentagon has repeatedly failed to ever pass an audit doesn't exactly inspire confidence about financial accountability on something this huge. And the Congressional Research Service noted a lack of public details on tech specs and deliverables, making effective oversight harder for Congress and for you, the public.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, Golden Dome is clearly huge in ambition, but faces equally huge challenges. How does it stack up against past efforts like SDI or current systems like Iron Dome?
Well, the Iron Dome comparison, as we've said, is mostly rhetorical. It draws inspiration, sure, but the scale and threat are completely different. Defending the vast U.S. against ICBMs and hypersonics is just not comparable to Israel's challenge. So that comparison can be misleading.
Sets unrealistic expectations, maybe.
Potentially. Compared to existing U.S. systems like GMD, Day-to-Day, Patriot, Golden Dome aims to vastly exceed their capabilities, acknowledging they're seen as insufficient now.
And compared to SDI, Star Wars.
The parallels are unavoidable. Grand visions, reliance on bleeding edge or non-existent tech, massive cost concerns, fears of triggering an arms race. It's very similar. Proponents say the tech is better now, but critics point out that many of SDI's fundamental problems being overwhelmed, space weapon survivability, decoys still haven't been fully solved.
So the same core challenges remain.
Many of them, yes. SDI was largely abandoned due to cost and tech immaturity. The question is whether Golden Dome can bring that cycle, or if it's destined to repeat it, chasing that elusive, impenetrable shield, which many experts still call a fantasy.
So to bring it all together for you, our listener, Golden Dome is this incredibly ambitious vision, a near-perfect shield, space-based tech, AI. But as we've unpacked, it faces enormous technical hurdles, potentially astronomical costs, deep strategic questions about arms races, and it echoes many challenges from SDI decades ago, and it's fundamentally different from something like Iron Dome.
That sums it up well. The goals, the tech, the cost, the geopolitical fallout. It's a lot to weigh.
So the question we leave you with is this. Given all these complexities, all these uncertainties, does Golden Dome represent a necessary evolution in defense, a logical next step? Or is it a potentially incredibly costly, maybe destabilizing gamble? What are the long-term implications for global security, for technology, if this kind of system actually gets built or if it doesn't? Definitely a lot to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Come on, let's go, y'all.
Overcoming the doubt, reinforce the understructure, play the role of the cast. Don't break when it's hard, just bend, have your fun, play your part, know when the night ends. Create, protect, preserve, put it all on the line and give them what they deserve. Watch the bubble of the steel, Tennessee whiskey and a soft red-headed thrill. That's the way it goes. Back and forth again, again.
Yeah, the music ain't very good in doing it this way, so we're just gonna try to continue here.
I am not a king, I am not a saint. I have problems in my head, my friends told me I've changed. I used to be gold like the first man made. Now I'm buried in the earth.
Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be diving in.
So today we're tackling the history behind the term targeted individuals. You shared some really fascinating material looking at how this whole concept has evolved.
Yeah, it's quite a journey.
Our mission really is to unpack this history, especially, within the context of what people call gang stalking, and see how it connects with, broader trends in society and technology.
We should probably mention, too, that the term does pop up elsewhere, like in law, international relations.
Right, good point. We'll touch on that briefly, but
Yeah.
our main focus is definitely its emergence within that specific gang stalking belief system.
Exactly. Because targeted individuals there means something quite different than, say, legally protected groups or people targeted by foreign states. For this deep dive, it's about that online subculture.
Okay, let's get into it then. The term targeted individuals, or TIS, as they're often called online,
Right.
it really seemed to take off in the early 2000s. And that coincided with the rise of online communities, didn't it?
Absolutely. It was a shift away from the classic stalker idea, one person.
This was different. Gang stalking, the name itself implies. Many people. Organized harassment.
And the internet was crucial. Online forums, later social media groups, they became these central hubs, places to share experiences.
There was that New York Times article, I think 2016. It estimated something like over 10,000 people act in these communities.
Yeah, believing they were part of this huge harassment conspiracy. And we started seeing some academic interest, too, attempts to classify these experiences.
This feeling, this sense of being targeted by a group, it's not entirely new, is it? If you look back historically.
Not at all. I mean, organized harassment, persecution based on religion, think of Buddhists in Imperial China or Jehovah's Witnesses under the Nazis. It has deep roots.
And political or social ideology, too. The Nazis targeting various groups, the LGBTQ plus community, facing harassment leading up to Stonewall.
Even labor movements like the Homestead Strike back in 1892, there are historical echoes.
And you mentioned contemporary examples like transnational repression.
Right, where governments actually do target their own citizens abroad. It shows that organized, state-sponsored harassment isn't just, paranoia. It's a real phenomenon in certain contexts.
Which brings us to surveillance. That history seems really key here.
Definitely sets the stage.
We've gone from things like, lantern laws in the 1700s, slave patrols,
Early forms of control and watching.
to the 20th century with wiretapping, the FBI, the NSA growing.
And attempts to regulate it, like FISA, ECPA, trying to put some boundaries.
But then the digital age hits. Mass surveillance, targeted surveillance using our phones, the internet.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
And that whole progression, that backdrop, it feeds into the claims you hear within the targeted individuals community about electronic harassment, even mind control.
things like electromagnetic radiation, V2K, or voice-to-skull tech, directed energy weapons, DWWs.
Exactly. It raises that question, doesn't it? How much does the reality of increasing surveillance shape these perceptions of being targeted in such extreme ways?
The line gets blurry.
It really can.
So gang stalking, as this specific concept, it really solidifies in the early 2000s. Online communities are ground zero.
Providing validation, shared narratives, a common language, beliefs about constant surveillance, advanced tech being used against them, that becomes common ground.
And there's often this rejection of mental health explanations, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes seeing a diagnosis is just another part of the harassment.
Which highlights this fundamental, clash in understanding. Psychology often looks towards delusional disorders, psychosis,
Yeah.
potentially amplified by online echo chambers.
There are other views.
While some suggest maybe intense paranoia could stem from real trauma or extreme stress, and the need for community, for validation, that plays a huge role too. Sociology looks at it more as a socially constructed belief system, a psychotic cultural structure, as one paper put it, built through those shared online narratives.
It's complex, and unfortunately we've seen intersections with violence. Some really tragic cases.
The Washington Navy Yard shooting, Aaron Alexis in 2013, Myron May, Florida State University in 2014, Gavin Long in Baton Rouge 2016.
And even recently, the 2024 Rochester Hills shooting, where reports mention the suspect's mother talking about government tracking beliefs.
These are rare, horrific events, but they bring the phenomenon into the public eye, along with media pieces like that Times article and people trying to find legal help.
Which is usually difficult,
Yeah.
given the nature of the claim.
Very difficult. Law enforcement has protocols for stalking, harassment, sure, but cyber stalking involving potentially hundreds of unseen people, claims of invisible tech, it's a massive challenge.
Government policies tend to focus on individual stalkers, online bullies.
Although, interestingly, the FBI is focusing more on transnational repression now, which shows that, yes, organized state-level targeting is a recognized concern, even if it's distinct from the typical gang stalking claims.
The internet's role here feels pivotal, both good and bad.
Absolutely transformative. It enabled the community, the information sharing, the identity. But yeah, the flip side is the echo chamber effect. Potential isolation from other viewpoints, maybe even radicalization in some cases.
And have the types of reported harassment changed over time?
It seems so. Maybe less focus on purely physical stalking acts and more claims involving electronic harassment, mind control.
Reflecting tech advances, maybe?
Yeah.
Or just the shared info online?
Probably a bit of both. The claims seem to get more specific too, and the whole gang stalking idea itself, unknown, numerous perpetrators, covert methods, it's a real departure from how we traditionally understood stalking.
So wrapping this up, what we're seeing is this intricate web, isn't it? Personal experience, the immense power of online community, very real anxieties about surveillance tech.
And these echoes of genuine historical persecution, whether religious, political, or state-sponsored.
The term targeted individuals, especially in that gang stalking world, it carries this heavy weight, this perception of systematic, inescapable harassment.
It really does.
Yeah.
Which leaves us with a thought, maybe for you listening.
Yeah.
Considering how fast technology is moving, how interconnected everything is, how might our understanding evolve? Both of these deeply personal experiences of persecution and the potential for real, organized forms of harassment that might be harder to see.
How do we navigate that line between perceived threats and actual, maybe hidden forms of control or harassment in the future?
Exactly. Definitely something to think about.
I am not a king, I am not a saint. I have problems in my head, my friends told me I've changed. I used to be gold like the first man made. Now I'm buried in the earth till the robin come and wake me up.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into something really fascinating. It's called Fox's Quantum Geometry of Information Model.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm
And
just
our
gonna leave
goal
it.
here is, well, to unpack its core ideas, because they suggest a really different way of looking at reality. And then we'll touch on a potential application that sounds like science fiction, honestly, especially since it's all being prepped for, wider public understanding.
Yeah, and what's really key, I think, is that this model starts right from the basics. It suggests everything, even space-time isn't just there.
It's not.
No, it's actually built, constructed from these fundamental building blocks.
Okay, let's get into that. So everything's made from fundamental units of information, what does that actually mean? What are these units?
Well, they have certain properties
I'll
for
be
magnets, like
right
energy
back.
spin.
I'm gonna have to leave this. I'm gonna have to pause. I appreciate you. Actually,